at Deep Intent, we're turning TV awareness and healthcare into real patient action by starting with identity and not just panels. So for us, we're resolving CTV and digital exposure to individuals, the same person, by using identifiers like NPIs, HEMS, IP device, and household signals, so that a CTV impression is streaming on an environment and in a display impression on a health endemic site. These get recorded as the same individual and not modeled as lookalike audiences. We're extending these CTV impressions on a household level. So for an awareness spot, we can suppress or sequence into that next patient's mobile session. We're measuring across patient journey, and this gives us the ability to look at those clinical actions or the clinical decisions and the activation points across that patient journey, ensuring that we're able to map these data into clinical conversion signals. So did we change a physician behavior? Did we change a visitation behavior? Is a patient getting on a therapy? All of this being able to be reconciled back to those clinical journey moments. When we look at CTV, I think one of the things we always talk about is there's no more click-through rate, right? You're not seeing that as a signal. That's essentially zero. That's fine, because what we're able to do is map that back again to those clinical conversions, which are what our pharma brands, patients, and HCPs are expecting.
So, what does a seamless patient journey actually look like?
For us, for our clients, it's really about making sure that we have a good handoff for the user experience, right? For the person that's consuming the advertisements, we really think about this as being a bit of a three-step handoff. So you've got CTV as an opener, you've got these digital carriers, and then endemic bundles. And when we think about this, think about CTV as being that opener to the dialogue. So it's just like when we sit down for that first conversation, and we see that our completion rates are nearly double online video. For us, just I pulled some recent numbers looking within our DSP. We see CTV drive 2 times higher new to brand prescriptions than OLV alone. So we also have some ongoing statistics that really support, again, a 2.5 times higher rate than within display. So for us, it's about digital really being the carrier of the next best action. That's the talk to your doctor message, savings card, right? Something that's really moving that patient forward within the journey. And when we look across research insights we see within our DSP and across industry, sometimes that missing layer, the middle layer of that sandwich, is really getting that CTV opener, getting into that condition-specific environment. So making sure that you have those endemic presence within this workflow between that TV impression and retargeting. So again, pulled some information on our recent data. I think a best practice that we see across the brands and the campaigns that are running from a CTV standpoint is when we're seeing the CTV and the digital concurrently running within the DSP.
So, how do you stay relevant without overwhelming the patient?
Great question. We talk about this even within our own household. I think, we sit around at night and we watch these ads, and my family is in a medical setting. So we're so attuned to seeing these advertisements. For us, right, it's really about frequency capping at the household level, not at that device level. So we talk about this all the time. We have a family within our own ecosystem where a family of 4 shouldn't be hitting their frequency cap independently. We talk about sequential creative. So second touch isn't the same as that first touch. So again, I talked about really being able to move the story forward. It's about being able to impart logic that when I first started in my career, we were writing down these paper BRDs, right? And today we're able to infuse story flow, sequential creative, to be able to message in that right moment of that patient journey to the household, to the individual. We talk about suppressing converted patients. If they've already achieved that desired conversion objective, move them out and into that next phase. So once a script is filled, we stop spending against the person and really shift into another phase of that journey. So once you're on therapy, are we helping to ensure adherence to that therapy? Then we talk about, again, that channel rotation. So same story I was telling before around moving from CTV into OLV, right, into audio, and being able to make sure that brands are not really burning frequency fast.
And shifting into the data side of things, where are you seeing data close the loop between an ad and a health outcome?
Yeah, great question, and one of my favorites coming from from the data space. I think what we see a lot of is that NPI level measurement. So, did a physician actually take an action as a result of seeing an advertisement, as a result of a patient coming in and requesting therapy? So, being able to correlate that exposure to an actual script or an actual conversion. So, having this be a deterministic and not a modeled insight for our brands is really something that's important in closing the loop. We talk again about script lift. So a group of individuals exposed to advertisement versus the control groups. Are we seeing changes in those behavior? And since we have visibility into that clinical patient journey, we're able to see those signals of change. So whether it's getting somebody to diagnosis faster, whether it's getting somebody to a specialist or a new type of treatment faster or right within a changed pattern, that's something that brands and businesses can really relate to. And this helps them to see signal of meaningful change sooner. It also helps them understand where there might be sticking points within that journey. A good example is oncology and rare disease. So we look at things like measuring exposures, correlation to a new diagnostic tool or a new class of therapy. Again, not just a click. I think one place we see area of opportunity where we're not necessarily closed in this loop, and it's not something unique to our platform, it's an industry-wide opportunity, is really being able to look across awareness-only campaigns where you don't necessarily have that script tie back. And understanding with post-bid invalid traffic, right? How do we close that loop a little bit? So something that I think we're all striving for as we work across the ecosystem.
And just finally, what are some of the smartest brands doing to move patients from awareness to action?
Great question. Really, the thing that I see, and again, validating industry wide, but looking across our platform, is when they run cohesive sequential campaigns. So you can't just speak to the HCP or the patient, right? That is a conversation of many, and ensuring that they are running concurrently these types of campaigns. Right? I have to have a willing prescriber met with a patient request. We talk about budgeting the journey, not the channel. So planning is one consolidated campaign. Ensuring that you're setting up script lift measurement before that first impression. So what are you trying to achieve as opposed to a retrospective? That deliberate pairing that we talked about, kind of that 1, 2, 3 hit, which is making sure that CTV is paired with an endemic layer and then ultimately extending out into those digital channels. And then aggressively suppressing. Like it's okay to move on once you've achieved success for that desired output and moving people through that journey earlier in the delivery.